You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where we talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. In this episode, I got to speak with Lesley Gouger, Barbera Howard, Jasmine Pierre, and Marjorie Lewit. They're all working together on a play called Group, which opens this weekend at the Avery Schreiber Playhouse on Lancashire and is put on by Defiance Theatre Company, which you can find at defiancetheatrecompany.com. And I will put a link to it on my website as well. We talked about the project and the importance of sharing stories. It's really the way we know we're not alone, the way we heal. This is our job as humans, connecting to one another and trying to do a little bit better every day. You can find us at theother50%.com to see bios, photos, the blog, the coffee cups, the t-shirts. You can find us on iTunes, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the places, and now on Stitcher as well. If you like this podcast, please share. I have another podcast called The Other 50%, a herstory of tech. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, or on the Other 50% website. That's where I talk to successful women in tech and hear their stories. Okay, here's Lesley, Barbera, Jasmine, and Marjorie. Welcome to The Other 50%. I'm excited to have all of you. Now, you're all working together on a play called Group.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming is about group therapy.
Yes.
So I think we should have a little group therapy right here, right now. But in a good, positive way. There's no crying. Unless there is, which makes me Barbara Walters. So feel free to cry. That would be great. Okay, so I want to talk about the play and everything about that. But first, I would like to learn about all of you. So let's start with Lesley. You are the writer.
Yes, I am the writer. In my other life, I am an English teacher at a school in Brentwood, and I got the opportunity to work on this play about 2 years ago when I joined Defiance Theatre Company, a small company in North Hollywood. There were some people there that were sort of thinking about a play about people with post-traumatic stress disorder, but they weren't really writers, so they asked if I would come on and put their ideas together and create a play, and so I did.
What a great idea.
Thank you.
Now, have you written other plays?
I have. I've written, I actually have a master's degree in creative writing and English, and my master's degree ended with a play that I wrote based off of the love song of Jelford Prufrock. And I do other kinds of writing as well. I'm actually in the middle of working on a young adult novel with a friend who lives in Louisiana. We've been writing it for a couple of years. We always seem to kind of get off track because of life and other things, or plays, as the case may be. But those are some of the other projects I'm working on.
Now, how do you collaborate on a novel long distance?
Google Docs is an amazing invention. We had actually started, I actually came up with the idea, and then we had worked on a project together many years ago, and she moved, unfortunately, in the middle of it, and then it was before the invention of things like Google Docs. So now that exists, we're able to get on together, just add things whenever we have free time to do it. But we try to write in at the same time. It works really effectively. We have very similar writing styles, and we're very yes and in the writing process, so it helps.
In life and in the writing process,
yes.
You must be yes and. So let me just sit on this for a minute. You're in writing at the same time on the same document, and that's cool?
Yeah.
But that would freak me out, honestly.
Yeah, I've done a lot of collaborative writing, and in the beginning I used to think that writing would be a very solitary experience.
Excruciating.
Sitting at the desk, crying a lot, biting a lot of fingernails, which also is part of it. But I actually really love collaborative writing. It gives you an opportunity to come up with things that you on your own wouldn't have thought of. And if you're open to the process of criticism and you're really focused on what's best serving the piece and not yourself, it can be a really effective way to get amazing ideas together.
You just have to be ego-free.
Yeah, we're not always ego-free, but we try.
You make an effort.
Yeah.
Okay, what grade do you teach?
I teach high school. I'm mostly juniors and seniors. I used to teach in college, though, so.
Fantastic. So you're doing that. You're writing plays, you're writing books. You're doing it.
Right, and occasionally living other lives.
Like what?
Oh, traveling, having, dogs.
How happy are you the school year's almost over?
Ecstatic. I only have a week left of teaching, not that I'm counting down the days. And I will be going on vacation on June 19th.
Fantastic. As a parent with 3 children who drives a long distance to school, I cannot wait for summer. Okay, Barbera.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Barbera Howard.
You are an actor. Tell us all about you.
I'm an actor.
Full stop. Have you been an actor your whole life?
My mother would say yes, but no. When I was growing up, I was extremely shy. And
Everyone looks so shocked right now.
I know, right? But yeah, well, Cancerian with Pisces, so it's like, where's my shell? Where's my shell? But when I saw Carol Burnett on the Gary Moore show, that's how old I am, I thought, wow, that's what I want to do. So I didn't do any theater in high school. Well, I did the senior class play. And
which was?
Who knows? But I played the maid, so it was a really small part.
You were just dipping your toe.
Yes, and I didn't have... I remember having to go up the stairs and off stage, but my lines ran out, so I just kept talking, and everybody laughed at what I said, and I thought, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
So then I majored in theater in college, and then I started doing a lot of plays.
Where did you go?
Judson College, a small women's college in Marion, Alabama, which was great as far as I was concerned. But, but still so shy that when I did my summer job while I was in college, I worked at a Dairy Queen, they'd say, oh, well, what are you majoring in? I'd say history. Because I didn't want people going,
anyway.
Well, you don't look like an actress.
I think that's actually not that unusual. Like, you can be the most introverted, shy person and still go out and turn it on.
A lot of actors are.
Yeah, for sure.
Real life has nothing to do with stage.
Right.
Yeah. So when I moved into New York City, I did a lot of theater, some soaps, a lot of TV commercials, but I always wanted to live in California. Again, when I heard that Carol Burnett went to UCLA, that's where I wanted to go to school. But
just side note, Carol Burnett and I share an eye doctor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your next appointment, I'll be there. But anyway, yeah. So then,
when did you move here?
I moved here in 1988, and always wanted to live in California, and I worked more when I was in New York than I did when I moved out here, because the business was totally different out here than in New York. But I've changed. I started working spiritually on myself when I was about 27, and growing spiritually and realizing that there's so much more to life than just what we're living here, but to open up and to grow and realize that my particular journey on earth is to expand spiritually. So
what did that look like when you were 27? Who were you reading or talking to, or how did you?
Well, I started reading books.
Such as?
I've never read a book until I was 27.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, well, I started with actually an old writer that I don't know many people know who he is now, which was Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
So that was my door opening to a different way of thinking. So I still think, but I'm not rich. But anyway.
So that didn't work?
Well, it's all a process. It's all a process.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
You're rich in other ways.
That's right. I am very rich in a lot of ways. So
acting has been your career?
Yeah. I mean, like any other actor, you've had a lot of other things. That I did a lot of children's entertainment for like 25, 30 years, and loved doing that, and working with kids and teaching kids and all that stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you liked California and you stayed?
Oh, I loved California the minute I got here.
Yeah. Me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're originally from New Jersey.
I grew up in New Jersey, that great state.
Okay, Jasmine, Pierre.
Yes.
You are an actor as well.
I am.
Tell us all about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Zimbabwe.
What?
What? I know, it's ridiculous.
How did that happen?
I'm not sure. I think my parents moved there at some point and had me.
The usual way.
Yeah, the usual way. My dad was born there. My mum was born in Mauritius. And so I grew up there.
Where? What?
In Mauritius. It's a little island off the coast of Madagascar.
Wow.
So I'm kind of...
Aren't you
person.
interesting?
Yeah.
And moving on. Imagine.
Margie, you have to follow this, so prepare yourself.
Not only is she foreign, but she's really foreign.
Very, very foreign.
Exotic. Okay, so you grew up in Zimbabwe? How long were you there?
I grew up in Zimbabwe. I was there until I was 20, and then I moved to New York. All by myself. I needed to get away from Africa, as one has to do if you spend a lot of time there.
You got out of Africa?
I got out of Africa.
Okay, so what did you do in New York?
I studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and then after that, I did a year at the company in the academy. So I worked for them for a year. And then after that, I travelled around, worked in North Carolina, and then I figured that I needed to really transition, and so I kind of took a year off theatre and off kind of work, and just worked on myself, and kind of went to group therapy for about a year, so it's really interesting that I'm in this play right now.
Do you want to talk about what you meant by transition?
Sure. Well, I'm transitioning from male to female. I identify as she, and I am transgender.
Okay, you are the most interesting person at this table. So the rest of you just stand down.
From Africa.
Seriously. Yeah. Okay, so you were acting before as a male?
Yes, so I've only ever acted as a male, really.
Is this your first acting as a female?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although she's probably been acting as a male her whole life.
Exactly, I've been acting my whole life. Yeah. And this is a non-binary role, so it's kind of just breaking down gender altogether, which is really interesting.
So it's kind of perfect.
It's perfect.
So, so many questions. So many questions.
I don't have all the answers.
Well, the role she's playing, Alex, is, not to infringe on her interview here, but is referred to as a they, not a he or she, which is another thing she's speaking of right now about the non-binary.
They, them instead of he, she.
Right. Is that a transitional pronoun, or is that where we land?
Interesting you say that, because when I first started transitioning, I did identify as them, they, just because I didn't feel like I could identify as she. Now I feel like I can, because it's not about what anyone else thinks, it's about what I feel.
Right. So it's fluid, fairly.
So now it's more, I identify as she. But there are lots of people who will identify as them, they for the rest of their lives.
Oh, this is so interesting.
They choose not to have to define themselves.
They kind of don't subscribe to gender at all, or it depends on how they feel that day.
Now tell me this, because I talked to a lot of people, I talked to a lot of women who are very conscious of how they present as women in this business. And you've done all of it. Have you been really conscious of how different it is to present as male and how different it is to present as female?
It's so different. But maybe for me, because I've never really truly been male, so I never really cared that much. But
did you have to consciously act male out in the world?
I did, yeah. And I kind of had to, it was something that I was thinking about all the time, like, try to do this. Because I had to fit into a certain box. Yeah. And as an actor, that's kind of normal. You have to kind of find your box, find what you're good at, and then kind of show the world that box. And so that's what I did for a while. I kind of fit into a very strict kind of box that I wanted to be a kind of leading male-esque boy next door type.
Yeah.
And then it was hard to break out of that box. And
so then now pursuing acting as a woman, do you feel like you have to try as hard to get into that box, or does that feel a lot different?
Well, now I'm not kind of going to... My thing is not going from one box into another. So I don't want to go from that to that. I kind of just want to create my own path. Yeah. So I'm not subscribing to gender. I'm just happy in being myself. And so it is easier. Much, much easier. Life is a lot easier.
That is great. And honestly, now is the time where it feels
absolutely.
Like now's the time to...
And in California?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
You come to the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
that's what
exactly.
I'm trying to say. So
very strange time.
Interesting. Okay, now Marjorie, you're going to be awfully boring now. I'm just kidding.
Marjorie is actually a dog. Take it.
I'm Marjorie. I'm directing this play. I'm working with these wonderful people.
Now we've met you before on the Stronger Than Pretty podcast.
Yeah, we talked about Stronger Than Pretty with Jared Martino and Pat Branch. It's funny because when you talked to me last time, you talked about being a woman on set. And then you asked Jasmine, what that, like, the acting male or acting female, whatever. And remember I was saying losing gender when you're directing, because hopefully you forget all of it.
You're just channeling.
But it is funny because I wonder sometimes what we women have to do when we have to bring on our male. Whatever that means, like when you have to bring, like maybe, you know, the ideas of male, female aren't so definable. Like you're saying what you have to bring when you're on set, and I'm saying hopefully you lose that. But at the same time, sometimes you might get a little bit more masculine when you're trying to take on, you know, or maybe it's becoming the most feminine. I don't know. What is that, right? Like, what is it when you...
It's so hard to define.
Right.
Because I think we all have masculine and feminine within
Absolutely.
us, and at very different scales and at different times, and depending on what you're doing, something may come out more.
Because being the most feminine for me is being confident. Being the most masculine for me is being confident. Isn't it just being who you are? It's both, you know. But anyway, yes, I'm directing this piece. This super complicated, complex, yet so simple because it's, you know, it's what a lot of people either go through on a daily basis. So some people suffer PTSD on a daily basis, or suffer when they're reminded of something, or only suffer once they've hit something truly traumatizing. It could be considered a complex emotion, but for me, just one of the most basic, fear. And basically fear. That's the biggest emotion there.
Okay, so let's lay out what this piece is. This is group therapy for people suffering from PTSD. All different kinds, or does everyone have a shared experience that got them to the PTSD?
Truly all different kinds. And
like not just military, which is I think how we think about it.
Right.
But really, a lot of people have PTSD from childhood.
Right. There's trauma can occur in all kinds of ways. I think one of the reasons I was excited to take on this project is to expose outside of the world of veterans how post-traumatic stress disorder can really impact people of all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Trauma does not discriminate.
Mm-hmm. So what, who are the characters in this play? Who should talk about that?
Start with these two right here.
All right. My character's name, this is Barbara. My character's name is, what is my character's name? I totally forgot. Sally. Oh, and I said I wanted to be somebody named Sally, and now I forgot. Yes, Sally has PSD from something that... PTSD. I'm not good at initials or names. From something that happened to her when she was in her early 30s. And that was that she witnessed a home invasion, and she herself was raped and shot in the head.
Oh my God!
Yeah. But survived.
Because she's in the play. No. But
and she watched her husband and her best friend
killed.
Be killed.
So that's trauma.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah. And she has suffered from PTSD for a really long time.
I'm suffering from it just hearing about it.
I know. And she's the oldest one in group. And it just indicates to me that no matter how old we get or what our experience is, things evolve and unfold when they're supposed to, and on a daily or monthly or whatever basis. When it's time for something new to present itself from the past, it's going to flow forward when you can accept it. And in a situation of group, and also all of these people that are in group also do individual therapy, but they get together for this group session. And I think it's important for humans in general to just keep working and working and working and evolve and become the best people they can be. So Sally's journey is long and hard, but she has come a really long way, obviously, from what happened to her.
So that does seem to be the point, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just to keep evolving as humans.
The character of Sally also has a lot of humor. So there's a lot of humor in the play. It's not like you're going to go and, just leave drenched in water.
Otherwise we're all killing ourselves in the parking lot.
My good friend actually said that this play was far funnier than my last comedy. So
there are funny times.
Yeah. So there is a lot of humor in the play, which is also how me, Barbara, I live my life, I just try to find the humor in whatever I can, so.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the humanity. Okay, Jasmine.
The character I play is Alex, who identifies as non-binary, as we've talked about, and is a veteran from Afghanistan, and suffers from PTSD from Afghanistan, and being shot twice in war.
As well as an assault.
As well as an assault, as well as dealing with gender issues.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not all Afghanistan.
There's a lot of stuff going into Alex's PTSD. Yeah.
But really prevalent to today, the bathroom issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's another...
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, that's a big scene in there.
What is Alex's position on the bathroom issue?
It's a conversation that I've been having so often. Alex is in the women's bathroom, and when a lot of other women come into the women's bathroom, and I'm going to speak from my experience now, I do feel like I'm supposed to be there because I would feel very weird in the men's bathroom. But
it would look weird in the men's bathroom.
Exactly.
This is the point I think people are missing, is that they've been in bathrooms with transgender people their whole lives and never known it.
Right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Only now is it like, wait, now you have to tell us what you're doing exactly. But
I'm peeing. Going to the bathroom.
I do feel
mystery solved.
Ever so slightly awkward in the women's bathroom. If I get like a look sideways and it's probably just my own internal transphobia just working itself.
Or it could be someone just registering.
Exactly, registering.
All right.
Which is also fine. And I've never had any issues in the bathroom. Thank you.
May you never.
Yeah, but Alex goes through something quite traumatic, and I guess is kicked out of the women's bathroom, ends up in the men's bathroom, and ends up getting assaulted. It happened.
As one would.
As one would.
Yeah.
In the wrong bathroom.
Something about the bathroom, it's such a private place that we do some of our most intimate and human things.
Yes.
Which is it makes it all the more insane, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But beyond the bathroom, which is a huge topic, I don't know if you want to talk any more about that.
We use the bathroom. we all use the bathroom. I don't think it's even a topic.
Yeah.
As the book says, everybody poops.
Yeah, everybody poops. But moving on from that trauma, and from military trauma, which is, again, a whole conversation, I do think it's important to mention that third one, which is, and that's like sort of me asking you a question. Is it PTSD daily while you're transitioning or before you're transitioning? What is the PTSD? What is the trauma in that respect?
There's, when I first moved to the States and like a year ago, I was speaking to my therapist and I didn't even realize that I suffered from PTSD. Not only from like gender struggles, but from growing up in Zimbabwe, which I thought was completely normal. I thought it was normal to have a dictator as a president. Apparently it's not well nowadays.
Welcome to America.
It's more and more common.
But I've lost my train of thought.
PTSD
on a daily basis.
Yeah, basically. So dealing with it on a kind of daily basis, and now, it's little things that set you off. But I've found a lot of ways to get through it, and a lot of it is just kind of not caring what anyone else thinks. And I think that's
which we all should.
In the end of the day, that's kind of what we all should subscribe to.
And it seems like you have to be very open and honest and aware as a human. I mean, otherwise you're on drugs, right? To get through it?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. I've had like the most amazing growing experience the last year. Like, kind of taking hold of my womanhood and it's been incredible. So I don't really care what anyone else thinks. I mean, the PTSD, that's a kind of a daily struggle, but I think everyone has a little bit of PTSD in modern society.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the payoff is so much bigger and better.
Yeah, exactly.
Than the obstacles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what other characters are in this play?
We've got Jessica, who is a victim in denial of domestic violence and emotional abuse as well.
Is she going through it and in denial?
Yes, and also in her past from her father.
How'd you get to group?
She actually got to group through an odd way. She's not there specifically for that. She got there because it's court mandated. She got arrested with a DUI. We won't go into details, but some unfortunate things
she's just
happened.
doing her court-ordered thing, and
Yes.
her actual problems have nothing to do with it.
Well, I mean, they obviously emerge in the therapy session, but she...
in her mind.
Yeah, in her mind, she doesn't really love that she's there, and she kind of approaches it in a distanced manner. Is that a generous way to put it?
Interesting.
Which, if it's court mandated and you're in group therapy, you're probably not going to care.
Yeah.
No, you show up, you get your stamp.
Yeah, exactly.
Though I will say, inadvertently, it's helping her, and there is something. I think that's what's important about people seeking help, even if you're sort of resistant to it. Sometimes people say you have to be fully invested for it to be effective, and I think obviously for it to be really effective, that's true. But any amount of therapy, I think, can be beneficial as long as you're in a supportive environment.
I agree there.
Mm-hmm. I think just being, and this is a big theme for me right now, but just being in a place where you're hearing other people's stories is so powerful in itself, even if you aren't even participating at all.
It's the only way I think we can grow as human beings.
Yes.
Telling stories and sharing.
Yeah.
We have another court-mandated character, which is Ed, who is on probation as a cop, and is also a veteran.
What did he do?
Well,
We might not reveal. It's sort of.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know if
kind of
surprise is the word I would put it, but it's an unexpected. I think is. I tried to play a lot in the play with stereotypes and images of what we think people might bring to the table.
Yeah, because I'm thinking he shot a black guy in the back.
Right. Okay.
I'm kind of hoping that we can talk about that.
Well, it's certainly an issue that is brought up in the play.
Okay, we'll leave it for. Who knows if that's what it is?
We'll certainly say that is that's definitely the impression that people have is they see the white cop coming in, court mandated. They must assume that it had something to do with a racial tension.
Yeah.
So that's Ed, and this is his first session, so he's sort of in many ways also acting in kind of like the audience. He's kind of coming in for the first time. He's a little unfamiliar with the territory. He's not really fully buying the experience.
we've got Marcus, who is sort of played opposite to the cop, so that's our black actor, and he is suffering from PTSD from, how specific should I get here? Losing someone, a very traumatic accident, let's say. And there's a lot of racial tension in the room there, but also some prejudice from him reminding Ed of someone. Beautiful, beautiful character Lesley wrote. I won't talk anymore about that. You have to come see it.
It's such a tease.
It is, yeah. But we do touch upon Alex and Sally, played by Jasmine and Barbara here, have a conversation about a black boy being shot by a cop just for having a candy bar in his pocket. So they touch upon that a little bit. And it's supposed to be like Lesley and I had just a little quick email back and forth. The story you've heard a million times, just over and over again, every time you look at the news. Some kid, like the kid that was shot and killed in the car just trying to leave a party. God. Or I was at Art Walk and I was looking at a piece of art that talked about a boy who was tagging a wall and was shot and killed in Boyle Heights. Just, who knows? It's not from tagging that they were killed. Did they run? Whatever. But a lot of shot in the back stories. But they bring that up in conversation about Ed, the cop. We have our therapist. We have John, our therapist, who's trying to get this group in order and keep them all aligned.
This motley crew.
And who is married to Hadara, a woman from, an Iranian woman, who's herself 8 months pregnant and suffering from prejudice and racism from her own mother-in-law, who basically does not agree with her Muslim religion and keeps making comments about that. I'm trying not to say too much right now.
So John's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, John has a lot on his plate.
It's something that people don't always realize. You think about therapists as being these people that are living perfect lives, that they have everything together, but they're human beings.
Therapists,
right? They're human beings, and yes. And I think that the key is that therapists, hopefully a good therapist learns to compartmentalize, but even the best therapist, I think, is going to have times in their life where it's just very difficult to keep the challenges and the obstacles in their own life from seeping into their practice, and I think we see a little bit of that here with John.
Well, therapists have to go to therapy.
Oh, they've got to have
for sure.
therapists.
Okay, so is there any third rail you guys are not touching on this play?
We tried to hit all the topics.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
We don't talk about ice cream.
Oh wait, we don't?
We don't.
So there are rewrites happening at this very moment.
Okay. What made you, Lesley, think you wanted to dive into this? And Marjorie, what made you think, yeah, I'll do that?
Sure. I actually have a background also in psychology, and I went to a master's program in psychology that explored, it's called transpersonal, and we sort of look at a developmental theory that examines sort of alternative approaches to therapy, a lot of Jungian inspiration. And so when I was originally asked if I was interested in writing this, I was really excited. I'd never really written anything quite as dramatic before. This is very, very dramatic, so I was intrigued by the challenge. It took me a little longer than I'd hoped to write it. It took me about 2 years because about 6 months into the writing process, my mother died rather unexpectedly. And so I was dealing sort of my own trauma. Thank you. And so trying to approach the process of writing this was tough for a while, but it also was oddly very helpful. And, I as a writer, I think what I've tried to do in my life is see the value of looking at psychology and writing and how they kind of go together. And I think in many ways people, when they have an outlet for the thoughts and feelings that are going on in themselves, can be very beneficial to the grieving process and to overcoming these types of things. So it was, I was excited to write it, and also it was a lot of intense research, particularly looking into people who had been traumatized and gone through these types of experiences. I really wanted to capture something real, but also bring it to a theatrical space. Trauma is a hard thing to want to watch and be a witness to. And so I worked really hard to try to find a way that this would be something that you would not only enjoy watching, despite the fact that the content is really intense, but get something valuable out of it as well.
Yeah, so are we all going to leave just gutted?
That's up to you.
No, I don't think so. No, I think with definitely a note of hope. So yeah.
Okay, so Marjorie, what made you think? Yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh well,
I'm gonna do
I
it.
wanted to work with anything that Lesley was a part of.
Oh.
Did you know each other before?
Yeah, we've been in the theater company, and by the way, I guess we should mention this is a Defiance Theater Company production. That's
Let's pause and refill coffees.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking everyone needs a little splash.
It sounded like she was going through that bathroom experience.
I know. We're not peeing.
We should have poured that when we were talking about it.
Having coffee like civilized people.
Yeah.
Who else would like? Okay, so you work at a theater company with Lesley.
Yes, so we're in Defiance Theater Company, and
is that the theater company putting this on?
Yes, and so Barbara, Lesley, and myself have been with the company for a little bit now, and Lesley is the communications liaison.
Right.
She's very good at communicating, and Barbara's been acting in a lot of productions and helping in other ways as well. Just completed Robin Hood, where she played a male character, and she did a fantastic job.
That was fun.
Yeah.
She's very funny.
Alan of Dale.
And Lesley had written, we had sort of been doing these writing workshops, and she had written the opening of a play that we were going to do, and we were all going to continue this play. It was going to be 5 writers that were sort of collaboratively writing, like we discussed before, and Lesley did the opening scene, and it was so good, and I was so excited about it. And I said, I really like her writing style. And so when I heard she was working on this project, I was very compelled by that idea. But also this year in particular has been just really, really crazily aligned with,
this is your wheelhouse right now.
Yes. So with Jarrett and, Stronger Than Pretty. So we've got a film about domestic violence. We've got, a short documentary called Inner Warrior about, survivors of, PTSD, of different traumas. And we've got this short film I worked on with Dante Russo called Grief, which is about a sock that's lost his other half at a laundromat. So, and then we have group. And for some reason, I'm very drawn to, I'm a very empathetic person.
You're working it all out.
Yes, I really am. I'm drawn to these types of things. I have a lot in common with these characters. I've been through some of what the characters have been through, and I've also suffered from how to manage that. I've never been to group therapy, and I really want to go. And maybe Jasmine can talk more about that. But I've only been to therapy one-on-one, and I really think I should go to group therapy. But how you deal with all of that, my 20s were probably the worst part. I just think your 20s is just, it can be a terrible time or a great time. But for me, it was a really, really hard time with how to deal with everything that I've been through. And, you get to the verge of losing it almost. And so I can relate to anger, for sure. You got our character Ed, who is very prone to anger. And I can relate to closing up and not wanting to talk about it. And I can relate to expressing through art and sharing in that way. Maybe not in group therapy, but I tell you, theater and film has been my group therapy, has been my sharing. Art has been my way of releasing. And
you work on these kinds of projects and you start to discover all the stories, as you were saying, Barb, about other people and the types of experiences they've been, and it really opens people up. It becomes a space of sharing. And I think there's so many times in life where we reserve ourselves and we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to sort of open up. But when we do that, it really does have an impact, not only on ourselves, but on the art, too. I think the art becomes better.
I think it's such a risk, especially in that vulnerable period where you're transitioning into an adult, and if you've been in survival as a child, and then you get to the point of, oh, now I'm an adult and I have to figure out how to go forward without just being in defense. That's a whole transition. And then it's so easy to get isolated because I'm the only one and everyone else seems fine. The power of sharing it.
I think we're really lucky with the time period we grew up in. I'm sure every generation has said this, but I do worry slightly for the children who parents are sort of have devices babysitting them. So instead of speaking to them or sharing or going outside, a lot of children are being babysat by their iPad or their iPhone or the television. And so I think that we're a little bit lucky in that way, and that we all grew up with a different experience in that way. But I also think we may have grown up with keep a stiff upper lip, or that's private. So sharing is like a new thing. It's...
I was always told you don't air your dirty laundry in public. Yes. So I just closed in. I didn't say anything.
While we grew up with, being outside and being raised by people, we also weren't really encouraged to share. Lesley's a teacher. She can talk about that. Jasmine's in group therapy. She can talk about how helpful that is. And Barbara, you've seen how people deal over a certain amount of time, like, how things have changed. And so that's that experience.
So the radical brave act becomes the sharing of it.
I think so, yes.
That's the rebellion.
Yeah. I suppose the only PTSD we don't mention really is, I guess we don't really touch upon disability, I suppose, both unseen and seen disability. But, we respect and understand that that's there as well. You can't really have a real group where that's all happening. I don't think we talked about that. And we're like, okay, well, how realistic is this? We're really representing every single thing. But
can you imagine a group where absolutely everything
is represented? And it's just like, that's not really how it is it?
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So, Jasmine, yes, let's talk about actual group therapy.
Absolutely. I've been going to group therapy for about a year now. 2 different group therapies, a support group, and I go to group therapy. Group therapy is very much like this play.
Yeah, what's the difference?
The support group is like 30 plus people, and coming in and out, and it's new people every week, and it's a very large spectrum. So you have everyone. All different races, all different genders, all differently identified.
But is it based around one topic?
Yes, it is. It is transgender.
Okay.
So anyone who is transgender can come to this group. It's called Trans Perceptions. It's on Fridays.
And won't people in North Carolina be surprised to hear there are a lot of people coming to that
There
group?
are a lot of people coming to that group constantly, and these are just people. These are also people who have just started their transition. So
We're just thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Just they want to be in a safe space where they can be called she and see what it feels like. Or they can wear what they want and they're not going to be scared. So it's really good for that. And then after that, we all go out to Denny's. And so there's about 30 of us at Denny's. It's very interesting. Yeah. 30 trans people at Denny's sitting. But they expect us to come there, and we have a great time. It's a good place to connect with people. That's what that group therapy is for. Then I have another group therapy that's just 8-9 people, and that's all trans women. And I've been with them for about a year as well. And it's different in the sense that it is more of a therapy group. It's more of a let's work through this instead of what are your experiences.
Yeah.
It's
one is more community and the other is more
exactly
deep, specific.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's more time.
But, yeah, and I suggest going to therapy for everyone. I've been trying to tell people for such a long time, and I have individual therapy. So at one point I had therapy 3-4 days of the week, and it was crazy. But
Great though.
Yeah, I worked on myself a lot in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And then as you were going through that, what else were you doing in your life? Did you have a job?
I did. I was balancing finding my feet in LA. I was also coming out to my parents and dealing with that whole stress.
How'd that go?
Oh, it was hard to begin with, but they've come a very, very, very long way.
Were they really shocked, or did they kind of know?
They were, and they're from Zimbabwe. They're from a third world country in a different generation. So this was very hard for them.
They're like, America.
Yeah, they did. I tried to explain, no, it's not just America.
But looking back, was there any little bit of, oh, that makes sense now?
To me, I constantly get that. I constantly think back to memories. I'm like, oh my God, why didn't someone tell me? Why didn't I know?
Why didn't someone notice?
Exactly. But I guess I hit it well.
And what a thing to be like, hey, I've noticed. Do you think perhaps?
Yeah. Someone would say something like, oh, you have very feminine wrists. I'm like, oh, what does that even mean?
Thank you, my bones grew themselves.
But yeah, all through growing up, there were lots of little signs for myself. As well as the big ones, I don't know, changing into my mother's clothes and spending, a couple of hours a day in them.
That's a big hint.
Yeah, big hint. But I kind of compartmentalized that and went, no, I'm an actor, so I just need a bit of exploration every couple of days.
Because you could be a cross-dresser and not be transgender.
Yeah. No.
There's your therapy. Acting is therapy.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really through therapy that I gained the confidence to be able to go out and see people, and it was very hard to just walk out the door presenting as female because I was just so...
Oh, I bet. I wonder about the moments of when you finally are honest to yourself, the day you say, okay, I really think I'm a woman. To say that.
Yeah.
That world crashing around you.
Yeah. That was really hard for me.
That's a big moment,
to be able to call myself she and to be able to say I am a woman.
Yeah.
It's taken some time.
Oof,
there's something about when you have to fill out in an identity thing.
God,
I always find this
so annoying.
Yeah.
And then I have to put for race as well. I'm like, what do I put for that? I'm from Africa.
Yeah, she's the African.
You're African American.
Yeah, exactly.
But you look white.
So I can't put anything.
It's confusing.
Other.
Just ask.
Other.
Just ask. Let's talk about it. Let's have a cup of Joe.
I'm open.
All the things. Are you ever going to write a book?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay. I'm in line to read it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Barbara, let's talk more about you.
Okay. Gee, I thought I was done.
I don't know what to ask you, but I know there's more interesting things in there for you to tell us.
Well, okay. Well, I can go, if you want, I can go into some of my history when I was growing up.
Yeah. Because you're telling me you lost your parents very young and your grandparents very young?
Well, my mother crossed over when I was 24, my father when I was 26, and my grandparents the year before my mother passed. So
you were a grown-up. You were a grown-up early.
I was a grown-up early and on my own. I have 3 older sisters who are wonderful and we're very close, but they were all married with, children, and so there I was.
Did you get married and have children?
Not that I can remember. But
PTSD does that to you.
As you get older, you forget certain things.
She's also a vetted improviser, I might add. So,
and the sarcasm from the East Coast, you gotta get used to it.
Jersey kids, Jersey. But I was, and I hid this for a really long time because, as Marge was saying, my generation, we just didn't talk about stuff like that, and there was fear about talking about it, and also there was, I'm different than everybody, and I didn't get along really well with my father when I was growing up, and I don't know, I guess I would say things in a sarcastic manner, imagine, and I'd get swatted, and hit, and I remember this one time, it was my sister Marilyn's birthday, and being a Cancerian, all of that stuff is very important to me. And my father came home late, and I said, "Oh, you can't even come home on time for whatever I said." And he got up from his chair and swatted me, and I flew across the room, and I hit the radiator on the side of my face. And that I never told anyone because there was such fear and embarrassment. And when I went to school the next day, I said I slipped on the rug in the bathroom and I hit my head on the toilet, and that's why I had a bruise on the side of my face. But I would, my father and I just did not get along, and he would hit me a lot and stuff like that. And I took it on. As I grew up and I went to college, I started working and thinking, I had a really bad temper. In the house, not outside the house.
Well, you were living,
in the house.
So you owned part of that.
And so
I said sarcastically.
So when I went to college, I started working on changing my reaction to things and stuff like that. And unfortunately, what I did is I took on, it must have been my fault. I was not a nice person, not a nice child, and that's why I was the one in the family getting hit.
Yeah, if you could just stop provoking people.
So I did do some therapy, and my therapist said something to me. She said, "What in the world could a 5-year-old to 11-year-old do that was so bad to get that reaction from someone?"
Yeah.
And then I realized, I'm not the only one at fault here. She said, "Well, you probably weren't at fault at all. You were probably just verbally trying to change the situation in a time where you really shouldn't have been changing the situation."
And then when you're an adult and you see like a 7-year-old child and you realize how little that person is.
Exactly.
It changes everything.
So then I had to go back in and work on my relationship with my father, even though he had passed over. But I needed to go in and reevaluate all of my thinking and how I had reacted to that. So
So did you go through a period of, it was his fault? Did you pass through that to a period of forgiveness for him? Like, is that a journey?
Yes, because the fact of the matter is, I've worked on forgiving him and forgiving myself. Because if you don't forgive the person who caused pain, then that pain is still there.
Yeah.
And you have to forgive yourself for holding on to it or to release it so that you're more free-flowing, So yeah, I worked on a period of forgiving my father, and right now we have a really great relationship because he's dead.
Hey, that's like a line from the play.
That is a line from the play, and it really hits home when I say it. But I had a session with somebody who was able, kind of a medium. I was able to speak with my father on the other side. And, I'm going to get choked up, so sorry about that. It's okay. He came forward and he said, I am so sorry. I just didn't know any better. I'm sorry for the things I did and how I reacted. And that helped with the forgiving.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody says, I just didn't know any better, it's like, okay, well, I understand that. That was his way of coping, because who knows what happened in his childhood.
Yeah.
You know, he could have seen something in me that was so familiar to his childhood that that's why he reacted like that. But yeah, as I said earlier before we started doing this, or maybe I said it last night. Anyway, for me, my life is a process of opening and learning and growing spiritually. So, and that doesn't stop. That just goes from now until when I cross over and find out, oh, you did a great job, or, oh, well,
and on the other hand,
you're going back again.
We're never done.
We're never done.
Just when you think, oh, I've got it all together, now I'm a very healthy person, and then something else comes up, you're like,
gosh darn it.
Come on.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned the book I was reading the last time we met, which was Deep Survival. I think I mentioned that, the Lawrence Gonzalez book. And just a very short thing he said something like, don't try to be perfect, just try to be better.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple concept, but it really was like, oh, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep striving to be better. So.
And Maya Angelou says the same thing. When you know better, do better.
Yeah.
There's another one about happiness is fleeting, and so you just have to work on being content.
Just peace is really all we're after.
Oh, that's tough.
But you know, I found that the more I learned about myself and my reactions to things, it was easier for me to understand other people and their reactions. It's like we're all just human, doing the best we can.
Yeah.
No matter what that looks like, we're really doing the best we can. So.
And, you know, these kinds of things, like just, you know, when we all get in our cars today and leave, you feel, or when Jasmine leaves therapy, or any of us leave therapy, or having talked to a friend, sharing and talking, there's some kind of, like a little bit of a high, or I feel good today. I feel like I just talked about something I needed to talk about, which is this play.
I think it's good to know that you're not alone.
Yes, you're not alone.
That's the biggest thing. You are not alone. No one is ever alone.
And sadly, I think as adults, we lose these opportunities more and more, because I think as kids, you're all kind of going through the crap together, and so there's a lot of opportunities to be like, oh, this is terrible, and I hate being a kid and teenager and blah, blah, blah. But I think as an adult, you start to feel like you should have it all together, and so you really, like, most people, I think, walk around with masks all the time, trying to, like, really keep the true part of themselves from showing out of whatever, out of that fear that they're going to be, you know, once again, sitting alone at the lunch table, or that somehow whatever they have to offer the world is somehow not what the world wants to hear. So it's
fake
nice.
it till you make it.
Right. But I don't think that works. I think what happens is you forget who you are in that process. So
that's the duality of what you wrote. The characters, what they present to the world, and what they are inside. I mean, some of that is very literal with Jasmine's character, and then some of it is, you know, pretending to not care and caring a lot, and from my experience, just in the real world, that's how it goes. And then there's who you are before a traumatic event and who you are after, and trying to make those two things meet.
Covering.
Yeah. And, you know, I mentioned your 20s being a really difficult time. But it's really funny that, not funny, interesting that a lot of, you know, celebrities, their deaths being 27 years old, and Barbara talking about her finding her spirituality at 27 and really delving into that after so much loss. Interesting the way that you could have gone. And it's something about 27. What is that? Things in 9s and 3s.
Just Saturn return.
But, you know, you make a choice. Do you want to keep going? Or, you know, very rough year for me, 27. And that's what everyone in this group is making. Do we want to keep going? Or do we give up?
That's all the world is just people who have decided to keep going.
Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up and keep going.
You just got to keep going.
So we're all the brave ones.
Well, you know what? Being a human being is being brave.
Yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because life is really a lot harder than anyone tells you.
I think it's getting harder too. You know, although we want to assume that technology in many ways does make life simpler and I think allows for more globalization, I see it in my students. They are more stressed than most adults that I know. And, you know, the challenges, for example, when I applied to college, I applied to 3 colleges, which I thought was a lot of colleges.
I applied to 2.
My students are applying to somewhere between 20 and sometimes 30 colleges.
Come on.
And part of it is because of a lot
All
of
those applications. Every application, isn't that $25, $35, $50 an application?
more like closer to 100. So,
Now? Wow.
right. So you have all of that plus anything that goes into getting them, SAT preps and things like that, tutorials. So it's a long, tedious process. And, you know, a part of it is because the acceptance rate is just, they have way too many people applying to colleges now, which is wonderful, but it's problematic. Part of it is also just the world that we live in. You are expected to have certain things to be able to get to the next step, whatever that is.
It's almost a curse of too much information. And
Absolutely.
you're in Brentwood,
Yes.
where
yeah.
the expectations are high, I imagine.
Yeah, a lot of high pressure. I mean, I teach at a college prep school, so it's expected that the kids are going to move on to something prestigious afterwards. And that's unfortunate, especially for the arts. I think that's where we see the struggle a lot of the times is arts education often gets neglected and is not seen as valuable as, say, you know, math and science and English, hopefully is still holding on by a thread. But we see it, you know, nonetheless, that's really where kids start to, as we're seeing it here, they start to be themselves. They start to discover the important things about who they are as people. They discover their voice. They discover the value that they serve in the world and in society at large. And unfortunately, you know, I think my school does a good job with their arts programs. We really care about the arts programs. But often when it comes to the world of academics, the arts are often neglected. They don't,
For sure.
yeah, they don't see that there's not a quantifiable way to value arts education. While there is clearly a quality way to value it, without arts education, we have...
You can't test it.
Right, you can't test it, but without that aspect to a kid's life, I mean, it's where they learn to manage themselves. They learn to manage their inner emotions, and it's tough to see less and less kids wanting to go into that.
Someone said to me once, you spend all the time pouring all the information into them, and then you take away the outlet for them to express it.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Or you devalue that outlet and claim that it's not as economically viable to pursue a career in it. Though clearly people do that all the time. They find ways to follow their passions, follow their dreams.
Which is so much better than following something that your parents want you to do. Or
Right, or some mindless job.
yeah, you should be happy doing what you're doing.
Did you see that article about what happened to your class valedictorian? They're probably not as successful as you think.
Yeah.
Because those are the people who followed all the rules and did what was expected of
Mine
them.
is. Mine's a doctor, I believe.
But they're not the rebels and the innovators and the ones that take a different path. It's interesting.
You know, of course, there should be a lot of focus on, you know, engineering and science. I believe that
Especially
those are,
for girls.
Yes.
Get in there.
But, you know, I'm sure that there's more to speak to this than just 2 I know of. But 2 cast members of ours, William Apaya and Nocta Potlavan. I hope I said that
Easy
right.
for you to say.
Nocta Potlavan. So Nocta is playing Hadara, the Iranian character, and William is playing Marcus, our African American actor, or I should say black actor. I don't know where he's where Marcus is from, the character is from. But William was talking to me the other night when we were rehearsing privately about how his parents, we were just talking about parents and what they want from you. We were talking about how they feel about his career. And he said, oh yeah, they wanted me to be in the sciences, and I was something like a biochemical something or other.
What a
like he had
coincidence.
this whole major, and all of a sudden, and he kept changing it, and finally he's like, this is what I want to do. I really love this. And his parents had a difficult time with that. Just like the character he's playing, his father was like, I want you to be, you know, I know some good people at Brown I can introduce you to, and I'd like you to go into the sciences. And Marcus is like, I want to do music. And William, our actor, is like, I want to act. Nocta, she's
She works in the medical industry.
she was biomedical. I mean, she
had a
masters, like
master's
she
degree.
graduated full on, qualified. Parents wanted her to be a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist, something, but they wanted her to be independent, which is great. And then she said, you know what, this is not making, I'm not happy. I want to act. I want to do the arts. And I asked her about how her parents felt about that. Oh, it's hard every day, you know? But both of those actors at least have supportive parents, who didn't disown them when they went to the arts. But it is funny, when you want your child to be successful, you definitely steer them away from art.
I guess I will say that's the one, although my mom and I had some of our issues, she was always very supportive of my arts education, and she was, come to every single play, even if I wouldn't necessarily want her there at every single performance, but she was there with flowers and a cheery smile.
That's great.
Yeah.
My dad wanted me to be a writer, actually. I've been a writer since I was a kid, and then just sort of, I think I mentioned, sort of went into acting and directing and all these things.
I feel like the more female writers, the better.
Yeah, but my dad wanted me to be a writer. My dad, he worked for NOAA in the government and was on the science side of things, but he was also a painter and a musician. So
I love that.
yeah.
Okay, so now that we have tempted everybody with your play, where can we see it and when?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can see our play from June 16th to July 8th. It plays Fridays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. at the Avery Schreiber Playhouse, and that's in NoHo on, I think it's
Lancashire.
4585 Lancashire or something like that. So the Avery Schreiber Playhouse on Lancashire. Just a short walk from the subway if you like to take the subway.
You can go on to defiancetheatercompany.com.
Yeah, defiancetheatercompany.com.
And all the ticket information is there.
Company is spelled out.
Company is spelled out.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm writing this all down because I'm totally buying tickets.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going.
Yay.
I guess I have to memorize my lines now.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
Barbara, get it together.
Don't you?
And yeah, Fridays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. from June 16th to July 8th. Right through the 4th of July. America.
It's very American.
And June is PTSD Awareness
Yes.
Month, so
We should mention that.
support PTSD awareness
Yeah.
in June. And always.
And always. Go to my website and you'll be able to find all the things.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, you have reinforced for me that I love artists.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And break a leg.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, A Herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Lesley Gouger, Barbara Howard, Jasmine Pierre, and Marjorie Lewit for telling their stories. And special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, the merchandise, and the links to this play. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Other50% and Instagram at Other50%Podcast. And don't forget to check out The Other 50%, A Herstory of Tech. Thanks for listening. See you next time.